In this Digital Spy article, it ranks what TV characters have had the most love interests, with Friends' Joey with 41, Samantha from Sex and the City with 42, and Blanche from The Golden Girls with an impressive 165. Go on, Blanche. But it's Sam from Cheers with the top spot with 1,000 different love interests. However, I believe there's one character that has them all beat, and that is...
My name is Glenn Quagmire, and I say giggity.
Those are just some rookie numbers for old Glenn, who slept with everyone and everything.
Yeah, that's right. I'm weird.
It doesn't matter if they're monsters, giraffes, or Peter's meatloaf. If it exists, Quagmire is sticking himself into it, or sticking it up in him.
Oh, you scared him out the front! Tony, come back!
So, in this video, I'm going to go through his entire dating history, pinpointing how his character has evolved over the years through them, and how he became so darn sexually depraved. I was inspired to make this video after looking at Brian's dating history, and as we all know, Quagmire hates Brian. But I personally believe that one of the reasons why he detests Brian so much is because they are very, very similar. For example, do you remember when Quagmire goes off on a long rant at Brian listing all the ways he hates him?
You constantly hit on your best friend's wife. The man pays for your food and rescued you from certain death, and this is how you repay him?
Well, it turns out he's a big hypocrite because Quagmire has also lusted after his best friend's wife. So Lois is where we shall start. Glenn is shown to have a thing for Lois going all the way back to season 2 when he tried to put the moves on her when she came round to talk about Peter. And these feelings towards her only heightened in season 3's Lethal Weapons. It's in this episode where Lois scares everyone off with a stick on her front lawn.
That was strangely arousing. Ah!
But for Quagmire, it simply provoked a long harbouring obsession, to the point where we find out a few episodes later that he keeps a shrine dedicated to her.
A couple of teeth and some toenail clippings and we'll be ready for our date.
Which is incredibly creepy, but it would only get worse. In Stuck Together, Torn Apart, Peter and Lois are having marital issues and their therapist suggests a trial separation. And instead of being there for his best buddy, Quagmire immediately asks Lois out.
I guess it's better to go out with you than some sex pervert.
I'm in!
And when he picks her up, he wastes no time in being a creep.
It's kind of chilly out, so I brought you a jacket.
Oh, no thanks, I'll be fine.
Please?
Later on, while out at dinner, they spot Peter, who is also on a date, and Quagmire tries to hide. By the end, Lois and Peter do get back together, and Quagmire, well, he just then preys on Peter's date, Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Waiter, martini and a roofie colada.
And even though he missed his shot with Lois, Quagmire simply resorted to watching her in a public restroom, which we found out in this season 4 episode. Things get so bad that Lois even tries to get Quagmire thrown out of town, and rather than encouraging him to stop after these events, he shamelessly admits to stealing her toenail clippings.
Well, when I stopped over earlier, I noticed Lois clipping her toenails, and I thought, oh man, I gotta get in on that.
But eventually, Quagmire would finally get his wish of marrying Lois in season 5's Meet the Quagmires. Here, Peter goes back in time to him asking Lois to prom, while in doing so, completely messes up the timeline because he failed to show up. So when he returned to the present day, he discovered that Lois was now married to Quagmire and had 3 kids with him. But that would all change when Peter goes back in time again, knocks Quagmire out, and then proposes to Lois. And yeah, I know Quagmire can be a total creep, but it seemed like he was well and truly happy here. Far more than any other relationship that would see him in the future at least.
Let's go upstairs and do it.
Okay!
He also seemed to be a present father who liked making his kids laugh, so it seemed that marrying Lois would have given Quagmire his perfect life. But that's not the end of Quagmire and Lois's love story, because in season 8's Big Man on Hippocampus, Peter gets amnesia and splits with Lois, and as soon as he finds out, Quagmire makes his move. Again.
You wanna stop by tomorrow night? I'll just whip something up.
Well, sure, that sounds nice, Glenn.
He sets up a candlelit dinner and lays on the manipulation.
Well, you're a very sweet friend, and you're so good to listen to my troubles.
Oh, I could listen for hours, Lois.
Meanwhile, Peter gets his memories back and Brian warns him that Lois is on a date with Quagmire, and hey, maybe that's a reason why Quagmire hates Brian. Anyway, cutting back to Quagmire, and his plan has actually worked, and he gets her into bed. But when she calls him a trusted friend, he instantly loses his erection, and no amount of defibrillators will ever bring his willy back to life.
Damn it! Damn it!
Quagmire continues to be Lois's sex pest right up until season 14's Hot Pocket Dial. Here, Quagmire's feelings towards Lois are treated a bit more sincerely for a change, as Quagmire confesses to Ida that he really does love Lois.
I've loved her for years. She's warm and kind and beautiful. I've never been so in love with anyone.
But it turns out that he accidentally butt-dialed Peter, who overhears everything, and it leads to them falling out. But Glenn just can't help his feelings towards Lois and actually moves because of it. And it's Lois that has to bring them together by just simply saying that Quagmire should just repress his feelings for the sake of his and Peter's friendship.
If you're willing to forget all about this, I'm more than happy to continue hiding my true feelings.
It's after this that Quagmire's creepy behaviour towards Lois pretty much disappears for the most part. And saying that, it's around this same period where I did notice a real significant change in Quagmire's personality, where his perverse traits were really dialed back. This is highlighted in season 20's The Lois Quagmire. In it, Lois takes Glenn to her high school reunion, where he's surprisingly the perfect gentleman. He doesn't hit on her at all, which annoys Lois because she now feels undesirable. Quagmire explains that he didn't hit on her because she's his best friend's wife.
I didn't make a move on you because you're my best friend's wife.
Now, this definitely isn't the Quagmire we met in the earlier seasons, and I know there's a lot of fans out there who didn't like this growth, much preferring him as a one-note sleazy perverted character. But in my opinion, there's only so many ways and so many things you can do with this kind of character, and by this point in season 20, we've seen him do some pretty dark things. It's hard to top. But we're getting way too ahead of ourselves here because there's so much more of Glenn's dating history to cover, so let's rewind it back to season 4. So, not only did Quagmire try to bang Lois countless times, he also tried it on with his other friend's wife, such as in the episode The Cleveland Loretta Quagmire. In it, Glenn sleeps with Loretta and once again doesn't consider the fact that he's betraying his close friend again. Cleveland finds out and goes to bash Quagmire's brains out until he finds he just can't do it. So yeah, it's pretty obvious by now that Quagmire is a really sucky friend. But that's hardly the end of it, because much later on in the series, he'll sleep with Bonnie by lying to Joe that he is a virgin.
Oh, I've had sex lots of times. I just wanted to have it again. Screw you.
It really does make you wonder how he can sleep at night, but I can tell you how I sleep at night, and that's peacefully, thanks to my Manta Sleep eye mask. I use the sound mask, which has inbuilt razor-thin Bluetooth speakers at the sides, which means that I can listen to YouTube videos in bed without annoying my husband. Its battery life is long-lasting, and the soft tapered eye cups means it's very comfortable for side sleepers. It's also 100% blackout, super soft and breathable. At night, I have a million thoughts going on in my head, so listening to something really does help me sleep and wind down. Manta Sleep offers many different kinds of masks to choose from classic to silk. You can even swap out the eye cups for these cool ones which soothe tired eyes, or the steam cups that help clear your sinuses. So if you would like to give Manta Sleep a try, then click my link in the pinned comment below and make sure to use my code Lydia for 10% off your order. Thanks again, Manta Sleep, and back to the video. So by season 4, Quagmire has already tried to sleep with Lois and actually succeeded in sleeping with Loretta. And we haven't even mentioned his appearance on The Bachelorette where he roofied Brooke, which would have gone even further if he wasn't on camera. Yeah, this video is gonna get demonetized. And if that's not gross enough, it's also in that same episode he tried to start a threesome with Brooke with his very own mother.
Mom, you want this three-way to happen, you're gonna have to change your tone.
And don't you worry, I'll make sure to get onto his perverse relationship with his mother later on in the video. So it seemed Quagmire would remain a disgusting pervert incapable of finding any true love forever. But that was until I Take Thee Quagmire. In this episode, Peter is a contestant on Wheel of Fortune and he wins a week of free maid service. So Joan arrives and Peter makes her do the most humiliating things possible, like cleaning out his belly button. And when Quagmire comes over, it's love at first sight and he asks her out.
Oh my God, I'm in love.
And after only a few dates, Quagmire pops the question. So now that Glenn is in love and due to be wed, he's a totally changed guy. He no longer appreciates nudie mags or even a cheeky trip down to the strip club.
All right, Quagmire, time for your lap dance.
No, guys, I can't do that. It's degrading to women.
So, feeling like they've lost their freaky friend, Peter devises a plan to get him back, like buying him the Statue of Liberty's foot to tap into Glenn's foot fetish. But when that doesn't work, Quagmire gets married. And knowing that Glenn just can't resist Lois's bosom, Peter starts shaking her, thus snapping Glenn out of his trance and snapping him out of the mistake he's made. The next morning, Quagmire attempts to break up with her, but she threatens him if he ever tries to leave. So feeling like he's stuck in the marriage, the guys try and help him fake a heart attack.
Heart attack!
Glenn!
Their plan is that after the funeral, the guys would come back and dig up his coffin and he'll be home free. But when Mayor West starts filling up the graves with cement because he's terrified of zombies, Peter jumps in and drags Quagmire out.
Zombie!
But when Death arrives to collect Quagmire's soul, Joan grabs Death's arm instead and instantly dies. But Quagmire has one last request.
Hey, Death, can you leave that body here for another 5 minutes?
Also, side note, this isn't the first time that Quagmire has indulged in some quote-unquote Coldplay, because he has hopped in and out his fair share of coffins over the series. But brushing that off and moving on very quickly, if Peter hadn't reawakened Glenn's horniness, I do wonder if he and Joan would have remained happily married. And bouncing off of that question, did Peter doom his friend's marriage? Or was it doomed from the start? Let me know what you think. After this episode, Glenn will continue to have meaningless sex and one-night stands. And look, I'm not going to stand here and list every single woman and giraffe, because that means this video would be over 12 hours long. But this begs the question, why is Quagmire this way? How did he turn into such a womanizer and, let's face it, giant pervert? Well, one such reason was given to us in Season 8, Jerome is the New Black. In it, Brian wants to get closer with Quagmire and actually form a friendship, so he sends a letter to him and signs it from an old girlfriend, Cheryl Teagues. And when Brian tells Quagmire that she wasn't coming, Quagmire is heartbroken, explaining that she really is the one that got away.
Ever since she left, I've been chasing girls to fill the hole she made when she walked out.
And one season later, we would get a reason as to why in the episode Teagues for Two. Here we get a flashback of a young Quagmire being a street performer where he meets Cheryl Teagues. The two start dating and Quagmire has really found his true love. However, the relationship soon soured because of Glenn's jealousy and they broke up. But he never really got over it and still hoped to one day find her again. And he does, but not in the way he expected. You see, Brian takes Glenn's pickup artist class after an argument between them, and Brian then uses these lessons against him for picking up Cheryl Teagues. So to get back at Brian, Quagmire brings along Brian's true love, Jillian, and long story short, they start fighting and both women leave. But even though Quagmire says that Cheryl Teagues is the reason why he is the way he is, I think there's another reason, but more on that a bit later. So, in Season 9, we got one of my favourite episodes ever. Then there were fewer. In the episode, a bunch of characters are invited to James Woods' manor for a dinner party, including Quagmire, who rolls up with a brand new girl.
This guy? You disappear for a month and then you call me? So silly!
And even though it's very brief, it's legit the funniest relationship he's had in the entire show.
You are all expecting for dinner.
Oh good, I'm starved.
Settle down, will you?
He just had so much contempt for her, only calling her up as a last-minute booty call. So when Stephanie sits down in James Woods' chair, she is shot and killed. But what's funnier is that Quagmire couldn't give a single shit.
Quagmire loved that girl!
Easy.
No joke, but I kinda wish Stephanie survived. I loved her. At least she had a bit more personality than his other relationships.
Well, he could be. It all depends on what his astrological sign is.
Shut up.
So, we spoke earlier about Quagmire having no issues with sleeping with his best friend's wife, so their daughter shouldn't come as a shock either. In the Season 10 episode Meg and Quagmire, Peter's eldest turns 18 and is now above the age of consent, so naturally, Quagmire wastes absolutely no time in making his moves.
Hey, where's that Pinky going, huh? Where's he going? What's he doing? Get back here.
Later that night, he starts texting her and asks if she can fit her fist in her mouth, and he's about to message her saying that he's gonna wreck her before deciding to play it cool and simply ask her out.
Oh my god.
Now, the thing about Meg is that she's bullied by everyone, so it does make total sense why she'd be interested in Glenn because he's the only one actually being kind to her, creepy or not.
So, how your studies going?
They're going pretty good. School's good.
What's your favorite class?
He has absolutely no shame about it either, and even asked Peter to help him have sex with her.
Yeah, she's really making me work for it. Maybe you could talk to her.
But for the first time in his life, Peter is actually a protective dad and intervenes at every single opportunity. So to get her away from her dad, Quagmire takes Meg to an isolated cabin where he can finally sleep with her. And he almost succeeds, right up until Peter and Lois burst in. And Meg is actually grateful.
You know, Mom and Dad, I'm really glad that you kept me from doing what I was gonna do.
And look, I know this is supposed to be a comedy and none of this is supposed to be taken seriously, but it's insane how Quagmire has tried to sleep with both Peter's wife and his daughter. And Peter still continues to be best friends with him. And in the next season, he even nearly sleeps with Peter. So we've already established how marriage probably isn't the best fit for someone like Quagmire, but he'll find himself locked into another marriage in the season 11 episode The Giggity Wife. In the episode, the boys go on a night on the town and get so unbelievably wasted they wake up the next morning on their lawns, and Glenn is horrified to find out that he tied the knot.
Oh my god, I married a hooker?
So Quagmire tries to explain to Charmise that it was a mistake, but she doesn't want a divorce. But Glenn is desperate for one, but Joe reminds him that Quahog's laws are very, very strict, and if he proceeds, then Charmise would get everything he owns. So left with no other option, he tries to make it work with his new wife, and he tries everything, like spending a fortune on new clothes, only for her to go and pawn them. He even invites her to meet his friend's family, which goes as well as you'd expect it to.
Do something to me. I love you.
But hey, at least Stewie liked her.
I'm obsessed with Charmise.
So after 2 weeks, Charmise is getting impatient because Quagmire hasn't slept with her yet. So she asks him if he's gay, and seeing this as his opportunity, he says yes. And this actually works. At first anyway, because when she returns to pick up her mouthwash, she catches him watching straight porn.
Damn it, Glenn, if you're not gay, then the divorce is off.
No, I am, I swear to God!
So she has an ultimatum for him, either sleep with a man right in front of her or no divorce. And left with no other option, Quagmire begs Peter to sleep with him, and he's surprisingly chill about it.
There will be no kissing on the mouth.
Okay.
I changed my mind. There will be kissing on the mouth.
Which I guess isn't that surprising, seeing as Peter himself has come out as bi. The only term Peter has is that Quagmire must take him out for dinner first.
Hey, I'm not just a poorly cleaned butt. There's a whole man around it you have to please.
Back at home, and Charmise sits in a chair and watches them bang, and this is such a gross scene, like, they barf into each other's mouths. And just before they're about to go through with it, Charmise stops everything as she clearly sees he's not gay, therefore granting him the divorce, thus leaving Quagmire to thank Peter for being such a good friend.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, you're welcome, buddy.
So it's safe to say that Quagmire has had a lot of flings by this point, but he hasn't had a serious relationship with someone since Joan in season 4. But that all changed when he met his match in season 12's Quagmire's Quagmire. When his laptop freezes due to dodgy porn sites, he takes it back to Apple where a sales assistant called Sonia fixes it. And instead of being grossed out by the porn sites, she's totally into it. So of course Quagmire takes her out for dinner, and it turns out she's just as kinky, if not more so than him. The next morning he wakes up handcuffed to the bed and learns that he was roofied.
Are you mad?
No! I'm in love!
Quagmire's totally head over heels and they become an official item, and at first everything is great and kinky, but Sonia is somehow far more freaky, to the point where she asks Quagmire to sleep with his parent Ida.
And I'm gonna watch.
Hi, Glenn.
Which is all kinds of fucked up. Sonia then takes things even further by physically abusing Quagmire, and dumps him in a trunk.
Giggity.
That's my word! That's my word!
So after he's been missing for a while, a worried Ida asks Peter and Joe for their help, and they eventually find him tied up in a storage locker. Sonia gets the drop on them and holds them at gunpoint, but when she pulls the trigger, she finds out that it's all out of bullets. So Quagmire is free, and the only lesson he's learned is...
When it comes to relationships, I need to be the kinky one.
Oh yeah, and we also find this out.
My dad's pregnant with my kid.
No idea how that's possible, but there you go. And thank God they never followed up on this, because Quagmire already has enough illegitimate kids. He doesn't need another one. Which makes me wonder, how many people has he slept with? Well, we found out a definitive answer in season 13's Fighting Irish. In it, Quagmire throws a massive party called Quagfest to celebrate his 1,000th sexual conquest. And there's even a parade of women that he slept with from all over the world, organised by country.
Wow. Wow, they're young. We should go.
And when Quagmire takes the stage, he brings on his first ever sexual partner, his elementary school teacher, Miss Eleanor. Basically, Quagmire was taken advantage of when he was younger, and perhaps this is the real reason why he is the way he is, rather than the whole Cheryl Teagues fiasco. But there's also another person who I think is to blame for Quagmire being this way, and that is his mum. We meet her in the same season in the episode Quagmire's Mum. Here we learn that when Quagmire was born, his mother requested that he be reinserted back inside of her.
I was born 9 times that day.
This was basically implying that she was a very promiscuous lady, to the point where Glenn learned his alphabet by learning the names of the men she brought over. We also get another reason as to why he's so sexually effed up in the episode A Fistful of Meg. Here we're shown a flashback to Quagmire's childhood and his bully who essayed him. So yeah, he had a really dark childhood filled with extremely inappropriate moments that would mess anyone up, but even still, it doesn't really excuse his crimes, like, at all. And yes, before anyone says it's just a cartoon, like I'm not fully aware of it, lining up all of these dark moments to build a cohesive evolution is what we're all about here. So, moving away from this dark subject matter, and let's continue with his next relationship with a lady called Kimmy. So, in the season 13 episode Take My Wife Please, Lois organises for all the couples to go on a private island for a couples retreat. And as the only single guy, Glenn feels left out, so he quickly finds a lady online to bring along.
Who's this?
This is Kimmy. I met her in a pop-up window on the internet. She was in my area.
The trip is all about getting to know your partner better, and the only things we learn about these two are this.
Quagmire, what color are Kimmy's eyes?
Shaved. Sorry, what is it? What's the question?
As well as this.
I feel like my cervix hurts.
I feel pride.
And that's basically it. There's still a couple by the end, but we never see her again after this episode. Glenn's relationships are never very deep or very interesting, and they only seem to be ever played for laughs. But you know what, that's totally fine because they tend to use Brian to explore these more deeper relationship type episodes. So Glenn's next relationship comes in season 14's Candy Quahog Marshmallow. Here, the guys find out that Quagmire used to be in a South Korean soap opera called Winter Summer, starring as the character American Johnny. And the guys become completely obsessed with the show, binging all of Quagmire's VHSs, and when they run out, they fly to Korea to find and watch the final episode. And as here, they bump into Quagmire's old flame, Soo-jin.
Oh, it's so great to see you, Soo-jin. You look just as pretty as ever.
Soo-jin brings the guys back to her house where she introduces Glenn to his old cat Buttercup and her kittens.
My God, this is more pussy than even I can handle.
This reunion makes Glenn realise that he should have never left, and so decides to stay.
I don't have anyone waiting for me in Quahog, but here I've got Soo-jin. I've got Buttercup and our grandcats.
But Quagmire isn't quite used to Soo-jin's customs, like having her entire family come and live with them. This causes Quagmire to change his mind, and he comes back to America.
I can get drunk whenever, sleep with anyone, and just hide in my house and avoid the world if I feel like it.
And although I did really like this episode, I did think the resolution at the end was way too rushed. Personally, I would have liked to have seen more reasons why Glenn chose not to stay with Soo-jin, seeing as he was so happy. Basically, it was too abrupt and too unsatisfying, especially because Soo-jin seemed to be the only normal woman we've seen him date. So Quagmire really stuck to his word when he said he can now sleep with everyone, because he'll literally sleep with everyone and anyone when he discovers Tinder in season 15's The Dating Game. So here, Glenn downloads the app and gets his first match, and is shocked to find that he doesn't have to take her out for dinner or put any real work in at all.
So I don't have to make small talk with you or spend any money?
Of course not.
But he soon becomes addicted. So to save their friend, the guys hide his phone and show him the wonders of real life dating. But Glenn is having none of it and storms off to the drunken clam for a drink. And it's here where he dusts off his old skills and picks up a woman. It's then revealed that this woman was just a hooker that the guys ordered, only for that woman to actually be a serial killer.
I'm that prostitute you guys hired to seduce your friend?
Oh boy. Well, deal's off. He's dead.
And even though Quagmire doesn't die, he still gives up Tinder and continues his casual flings while indulging in his love for cats. He loves them so much that he even starts up his own cat cafe until Brian came along and was a total D-bag as usual and got it shut down. And I've said it before, but I do think a big part of why Quagmire hates Brian so much is simply because he hates dogs. Which is a big problem when he starts dating a lady called Carrie in the season 20 episode Must Love Dogs. So, while Quagmire is giving out candy on Halloween night, he meets Carrie, who is taking her niece out for trick-or-treating. They go for lunch together and they have a lot in common, except for the fact that she loves dogs and he can't stand dogs. So, he lies.
I don't think I could be with someone who doesn't love dogs as much as I do.
Yeah, it's great we like the same things as soon as you say what you like.
He takes things even further by saying he owns a dog, suggesting a dog park for their next date. So he goes to the pet shop to buy one, but he can't believe how much they cost. So he decides to go to his sworn enemy to ask for help.
There are not enough tennis balls in the world for me to...
I have 6.
I'll do it.
Brian agrees, mainly for the tennis balls, but also for the chance to see Quagmire spectacularly fail.
I'm only doing this so I can have a front row seat when you crash and burn.
But it turns out that this wasn't just another meaningless fling for Quagmire, confessing to Brian he has real feelings for her. But instead of putting their differences aside and being supportive, Brian continues to be an a-hole. Like going up to Carrie with an engagement ring with also a letter with Glenn proposing to her.
Yes, of course I'll marry you.
But rather than being pissed off, Glenn seems quite happy about it. At least he was until Carrie came to move in with all 14 of her dogs. And look, I love dogs, but I can't blame Glenn for being pissed off that this was his life now, dedicated to feeding and looking after all these damn dogs. So it's the day of their engagement party and Brian is absolutely reveling in it. But Glenn hasn't even cracked, at least not until the dogs rush out and ruin the party. And realizing he can't keep living like this, he finally comes clean.
I hate dogs.
But Carrie's not upset that he doesn't like dogs, she's only mad that he lied. His most recent partner was in season 21 and a lady called Stephanie. When Quagmire invites his neighbours out for a double date, it turns out that Lois already knew her from middle school. But to be honest, there's not really a whole lot to say here. They seem to have gotten on very well, but we never really saw her again after this episode. But this was mainly because it was a plot point for Lois to meet her old bully again. Therefore, not really a Quagmire and love interest story here. So, looking back over Quagmire's dating history, and I was honestly surprised he didn't have more girlfriends, especially when compared to someone like Brian who's had at least 25. But it makes sense. Out of his married friendship group, Quagmire is the only one who's single, meaning that the writers have far more scope to do these dating storylines and sex jokes about him, focusing more on one-time flings with many different women rather than actual relationships. As such, it makes no sense to pair Quagmire up with someone for the long term, especially when his character is so tied to being a womanizing playboy. But what do you think, and what do you think of Quagmire's development? Do you like it, or do you prefer him just being that one-note silly character? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.